Sonic was the first video game I was ever obsessed with. My first experience with the series was back on the Game Boy when I played Sonic Advance. I spent hours on this game and I tried my best to get the fastest time on each level. This was probably back in 2002, 2004, but ever since I became the biggest Sonic fan you'll probably would have ever met. I had plushies, toys, and I spent way too much time trying to draw them in my room. The years started to pass and I got a little bit older and Sonic games kinda started to become weird. I don't know, they're just not fun anymore. I often hear this argument on the internet that Sonic was never good or fun to begin with, or that people are blinded by nostalgia, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, Sonic came out in '91. There's a reason it gave Mario a run for its money when it came out. And no, I'm not talking about from a character design standpoint or even a marketing standpoint. I'm talking about purely gameplay and gameplay mechanics. Sonic was always good, and today I want to talk about that. A bit of a different video today, but hang tight. We're going to be talking about a concept known as intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. In psychology, we have motivations that drive us, things that push us to accomplish goals or tasks. Now, you probably think you know what drives you, depending on the person, and the answer would be personal gain or for your family, and you'd be right. However, the question is a little more complex than that. The key ability of successful people is that they know how to motivate themselves effectively. The skill of being able to start and finish tasks rigorously is what solidified their chances at being successful overall. But what motivation is most important? Is it the motivation that arises from outside the individual, extrinsic, or the motivation that arises from inside the individual, intrinsic? Now, I can go on and on and on about how people can be motivated in their real lives, but this is a video game channel, and I'm sure you all want to know how this applies to video games, more specifically Sonic. We have to figure out whether Sonic is a game that intrinsically motivates its player or extrinsically motivates them. So let's look at a few examples of this in other video games. I'll start with Street Fighter, or your classic fighting game. Now this should seem pretty obvious, it's intrinsic. Obviously, the motivation of anything is subjective inherently. You could be playing something simply because it looks cool. My motivation for wanting to play Third Strike stemmed from it looking cool. But that's just the surface. Wanting to get more out of a game reveals your motivation from it, or the game's purpose. Fighting games are all about self-improvement. You practice your combos, you spend hundreds of hours trying to get the move down, and when you finally get it off in an actual match, the fulfillment comes from within. Your training paid off. On the other hand, we have extrinsic motivation, which a lot of games and gamers fall in line with. Trying to 100% a game is an extrinsic motivator. You're trying to get all the collectibles and see everything the game has to offer. Getting a cool weapon or seeing something unfold within the game's narrative also falls in line with this. MMOs are definitely the mascot of this. Everything in these games are extrinsic. Your level, your pets, your mounts, your gear, it's all to achieve a certain level or rank in the game, or to just look cool, which is all tied to your external motivation. Both of these concepts are equally important to maintain a balance of a video game. Now with that out of the way, what is Sonic? How does it motivate its player? Well, we gotta talk about what Sonic was created to be. We all know Sonic's purpose was to rival Mario, and seeing how successful Mario was, that was a hard task to accomplish. So what Sega did was take the blueprint of Mario and made it better. Sonic's levels were designed to be played over and over again. Sega had intrinsically motivated players in mind. People complained about Sonic's movement feeling like crap and being hard to control, but that was kind of the point. The barrier of entry was high, while Mario had a high skill ceiling later on as the levels got harder. You needed to practice the levels before you can safely run through them all the way. Sonic was harder to control than Mario, but in the end, he was more precise once you've gotten used to it. You had to go slow first. It was never about being fast. Yet, that's what the practice was for. The original game didn't have spin dash, so speeding through the levels wasn't what the designers had in mind. It might have been frustrating at first, but it makes it more satisfying once you master them and start speedrunning the levels without getting hit. It's all about your individual skill. Sonic is a game that's intrinsically motivating. Here's a comparison. A lot of modern gamers don't like Sonic because they require you to practice and get better at the game consistently. People don't replay games much anymore, unlike the early 90s when it was normal to play through the game several times in one sitting. Want to know a genre that's very similar to that? Fighting games. Fighting games are notoriously hard to get into because there's a barrier of entry before you can have fun. You gotta practice your combos, and you've definitely gotta lose a lot. A lot of intrinsically motivating games like this don't have linear progression. They require you to go out of your way, so a lot of players get stumped early on and just quit. It made sense to design it this way at the time, but of course this wasn't gonna appeal to a modern audience. With Sonic, the developers agreed, and they started designing all the 3D games with casuals in mind. The levels started to become a little more streamlined and being easier to play through your first playthrough. The last few Sonic games to have the original design philosophy was the Advance series. Looking back, this was sort of Sonic's downfall, trying to appeal to that modern audience. Sonic wasn't a game that we played for hours because we wanted to see cool things in a level or beat a boss, but because it was a game that constantly challenged you to improve, to keep practicing until you can beat the level going as fast as you could. That is the appeal of Sonic. That's why even to this day, people have love for classic Sonic, and aside from his physical design and style, the gameplay stood the test of time. Thanks for watching this analysis on Sonic. It's something that just came to my mind and I ended up saying why not make a video about it. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the latest anatomy video on Sephiroth. Until then.